two presentations this afternoon. Tassie is going to present on inclusive approaches to teaching African American history, rooted in decolonial pedagogy and praxis. And then I'm going to present on African American lessons for today from the Reconstruction era of the 1870s. And the session is titled African American History, Liberation, Liberation and Resistance. And after we present, we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. Turn things over to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, everybody. My name is A. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a master's student of humanities at Wright State University. And I'm one of the community members that founded a mutual aid-based nonprofit called Inclusive Fairborn. And we focus on free grocery, medicine, mental health and sexual and reproductive health items, clothing distributions, founded Fairborn's Community Annual Pride, support harm reduction, and collaborate for efforts like free HIV and Hep C testing. So I'm deeply honored to be here today at the Coretta Scott King Center and just on this campus, a space that embodies the legacy of resistance, justice, and collective struggle. And as a scholar of humanities, encompassing race, gender, and disability studies, I'm committed to understanding and pursuing the dismantling of hierarchies that perpetuate oppression in my community and in academia. Today, I want to share with you my work on creating an inclusive curriculum for our survey or Introduction to African American History course, and one that centers the voices and knowledges of LGBTQ+ and disabled peoples, and integrate service learning as praxis, and challenge the Eurocentric and heteronormative frameworks that dominate higher education. So my guiding question with my project was, how can African American history survey courses better include LGBTQ+ and disabled voices while integrating service learning as praxis along theory? The question is not just academic for me, it is deeply personal and political. It is inspired by the works of revolutionary thinkers like Karl Marx, Audre Lorde, Angela Davis, Emma Goldman, Frantz Fanon, Walter Mignolo, Paulo Freire, and contemporary activists like Aubrey Smalls, Alice Wong, and Imani Barbarin. It is also rooted in the lived experience of people like William Dorsey Swann, Marsha P. Johnson, Brad Lomax, Huey P. Newton, and others who remind us that liberation is collective and intersectional. To understand the need for an inclusive curriculum, we must first examine the current state of African American history, especially just education, both K through 12 and higher education. Only 12 states in the US have K through 12 Black History mandate. In Ohio specifically, only 5% of educators for K through 12 are Black. And the statistic is only marginally better for higher education, especially at primarily white universities or institutions, PWIs, like Wright State University, which is where I attend and where I have been developing this scholarship because it has really shaped my experience. There's also a focus on exposure to a kind of history, a kind of grand narrative that often limits the contributions or doesn't even mention the contributions of Black, LGBTQ+, disabled, and queer people. While there are references to amazing movements like the Civil Rights Movement, Black Panther Party, SNCC, the NAACP, a lot of narratives in my experience at Wright State and through the curriculum that I have researched, there are a lot of pieces of that story missing from the perspectives that I'm proposing. This exclusion is further exacerbated by systemic barriers like cuts to DEI initiatives, the banning of books, the outright prohibition of critical race theory in many states, and these efforts suppress critical engagement with race, gender, and disability history. And they're not just political, they're pedagogical attacks on the very possibility of inclusive education. In higher education, survey textbooks and syllabi often reflect these same biases, focusing on grand narratives while omitting case studies that highlight contributions of queer and disabled individuals. Many seminal texts in African American studies, while foundational, fail to include the diverse experiences of LGBT and disabled peoples and communities. For example, in an Introduction to Black Studies by Maulana Karenga, queer and disabled experiences are largely omitted, and the only time and only reference to the LGBTQ+ community is to the AIDS crisis. Similarly, Introduction to African American Studies, Cultural Concepts and Theory, by Talmadge Anderson briefly references LGBTQ plus individuals in relation to liberalism's broadening scope, but that reduces queer existence to a byproduct of political shifts rather than recognizing it as an integral part of the African American experience. While African American Studies, the discipline Its Dimensions by Nathaniel Norman Jr. provides a more substantial discussion of the Black, gay, lesbian experience, including pivotal moments like Stonewall, it falls short of fully encompassing the breadth of Black perspectives by omitting the intersection of individuals who, like the LGBTQ plus community, navigate additional layers of oppression within the African American struggle. By framing LGBTQ plus inclusion as simply a political category, it doesn't do well to understanding the fundamental aspect of identity and humanity that queer and disabled people face and hold. This erasure denies the full spectrum of their struggles, contributions, and lived experiences within the fight against white supremacy, patriarchy, and systemic oppression. These gaps are not limited to textbooks, but also evident in university programs and publicly available curricula. At many predominantly white institutions, or PWIs, in Ohio, like Wright State University, which is where I attend, African American history courses rarely explore intersections that involve being queer and being disabled, and vice versa. The story of Brad Lomax and the Black Panthers' involvement in the 504 protest, which is currently under attack federally, or the leadership of Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera in Stonewall, are often absent from the curriculum, not to include so many other activists throughout history. This omission perpetuates a narrow understanding of African American history and reinforces the marginalizations of these groups within the educational spaces. To better understand these gaps and to identify the opportunities for improvement, I'm currently collecting survey responses from African American history professors at PWIs and other universities across Ohio. This survey explores how LGBTQ plus individuals and peoples with disabilities and their movements are incorporated into courses, as well as the challenges and strategies educators face in teaching these topics. By analyzing these responses alongside publicly available curricula, I aim to develop a more inclusive and representative approach of teaching African American history that addresses the full range of intersecting identities and systemic oppressions. The gaps in our curricula are not accidental. They are a reflection of the colonial matrix of power that Walter D. Mignolo critiques in The Darker Side of Western Modernity, Global Futures, Decolonial Options. Mignolo emphasizes the unity of this matrix, where the rhetoric of modernity, celebrating progress, development, and growth, exists alongside the logic of coloniality, which silences or relegates accompanying injustices like poverty, inequities, and the commodification of human life to mere problems to be solved. This duality perpetuates a mainstream focus on a universal human nature while marginalizing the perspectives of those whose humanity have been systemically devalued. To address these gaps, I propose a curriculum that centers the experiences of African American, LGBTQ plus, and disabled communities, integrates service learning, fosters critical consciousness among students. And critical consciousness, as developed from Paulo Freire from Pedagogy of the Oppressed, involves in achieving an in-depth understanding of the world, exposing social and political contradictions, and taking action against oppressive elements illuminated by that understanding. By acknowledging and addressing these enduring colonial legacies, rather than dismissing them as relics of the past, this curriculum challenges the colonial matrix of power and creates an educational framework that amplifies marginalized voices, equipping students to confront systemic inequities and contribute to a more just and inclusive future. This curriculum is rooted in my critical pedagogy, moving away from the banking model of education as described by Paulo Freire and Pedagogy of the Oppressed, where students memorize and reproduce information, towards a model that emphasizes dialogue, active participation, and the development of this critical consciousness, as mentioned before, and incorporates mindfulness and grounding practices based on medical research evidence, and provides all course materials for free, including weekly hands-on activities paired with daily discussions and writings. Another key element of this course is a serving learning project that engages students with grassroots organizations, mutual aid networks, or community-based collectives, allowing them to apply their learning from the classroom to real-world challenges. Locally, that would look like collaborations with Inclusive Fairborn, because I had to put them in there, Yellow Springs Equity, Nourish Our Neighbors, Divest Dayton, 937 Abolition, the Dayton Community Bail Fund, Citizens for a Better Beaver Creek, Recovery Plus, Trans Ohio, Black Trans Men of Ohio, and others. By integrating multimedia resources, videos, movies, maps, articles, poetry, music, books, and zines, we create a dynamic and inclusive learning environment that affirms marginalized identities and amplifies their voices. This approach not only deepens students' awareness of systemic inequities, but empowers them to take meaningful action against oppression, transforming education into a tool for potential social change. So what does this look like in the classroom? Well, the curriculum spans 15 weeks, beginning with a brief glimpse of pre-colonial Africa, going to the medieval period, and then moving chronologically to modern day. To create an inclusive and engaging learning environment, the curriculum incorporates mindfulness and ensures that students feel supported in engaging with the challenging material. All course materials are free, removing financial barriers. Weekly hands-on activities and that interaction allows, and paired with daily discussions, allows for reflective writing and higher retention in material. And LGBTQ+ and disability experiences and perspectives are integrated throughout the course. And these activities allow students to openly question oppressive structures and connect historical themes to contemporary issues. It uses primary data sets from the Public Library of America and the National African American History Museum, secondary sources, ethnographic works, daily discussions to explore themes like the racist and homophobic origins of law enforcement, revolts to enslavement in the United States, ugly laws, Jim Crow laws, models of disability, Stonewall, the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, the school-to-prison pipeline, redlining in Dayton, mutual aid, and collective action. Each week is designed to foster critical consciousness, moving away from the banking model of education. For example, in week one, it introduces the students to the importance of African American studies as a discipline and explores the evolving social construction of race, gender, and disability through videos like The Origin of Race in USA and Gender from American history professors in collaboration with PBS. Alongside readings such as Conceptualizing Disability, 3 Models of Disability, students engage in discussion, create concepts maps connecting race and disability to African American history, and reflect on how their understanding of these concepts evolves. Week 2 delves into the diversity and complexity of pre-colonial African civilizations, in addition to analyzing the influence of medieval African empires, trade routes, and cultural developments on global history. Students explore interactive maps, like the Gold Road interactive map from the Center of African Studies at Howard University, and examine European depictions of African during the Middle Ages, reflecting on how these portrayals influence racial categorization and Enlightenment thought. Later weeks build on this foundation. Week 6 on the Harlem Renaissance includes Gladys Bentley's story as a drag king and Langston Hughes' poetry, highlighting the contributions of queer Black artists to the cultural movement. Week 10 explores disability solidarity through the story of Brad Lomax and the Black Panther Party involvement in the 504 protests, alongside primary sources like Huey P. Newton's essays on the intersections of Black power, women's liberation, and gay liberation. I'll give a second so people can get comfortable and sit down.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Thank you very Got everyone settled, that's good. Thank you all for being here, I appreciate your attendance. Where was I? Okay, so I'll restart. So week 10 explores disability and solidarity through the story of Brad Lomax and the Black Panther Party's involvement in the 504 protests and sit-ins, alongside primary sources like Huey P. Newton's essays on the intersections of Black power, women's liberation, and gay liberation. The course culminates in week 15 with students completing and presenting their final zine projects, which showcase their understanding of themes related to African American history, systemic racism, and social justice. Using data from the U.S. Trans Survey and tools like the LGBT Equality by State Snapshot, students analyze the experiences of Black transgender individuals and explore the varying levels of LGBTQ+ equality across the United States. Through peer feedback and class discussions, students reflect on how creating and sharing these zines deepen their understanding of African American history and social justice. And this project not only reinforces the course themes, but empowers them to creatively communicate their insights. My pedagogical goals for this course are to develop students' critical consciousness, foster dialogue and collaboration across difference, cultivate empathy and action, and empower students to question dominant narratives. By integrating local praxis and promoting inclusivity and solidarity and diverse perspectives, we can create a transformational education experience. These goals are informed by my participation in the Equity Champions programs at Wright State University, as well as the Course Design Institute, where I learned how to design classes equitably based on evidence-based practices and create supporting classroom environments for both educators and students. I engage with other educators who have been teaching for 20+ years, some fewer than that, some more, exploring conditions for thriving such as social belonging, trust and fairness, self-efficacy, identity, safety, and social connectedness. These experiences, along pedagogy of the oppressed, have deeply shaped my approach to teaching, emphasizing the importance of belonging and equity in the classroom. Of course, implementing this curriculum is not without its challenges. With our current administration, SB 1 being passed, institutional resistance, student discomfort with some controversial topics, and the need to navigate personal privileges and biases are all potential obstacles. To address these challenges, I propose institutional and community advocacy and collaboration, clear consensual classroom guidelines for safety, dialogue training that emphasizes active listening, accountability, and humility. And we must also frame discomfort and conflict as necessary for growth and regularly reflect on the voices and experiences of students and educators. I'm currently teaching a small independent group study at Wright State University for education members under the guidance of Dr. Coretta Scott. This group focuses on expanding their knowledges of equitable classroom, pedagogical strategies, diversity, and inclusion in their future courses. Through this collaboration, I am learning from their goals and perspectives while helping them develop the tools to create an inclusive, empowering learning environment for their futures. Together, these experiences have reinforced my commitment to fostering critical consciousness and equity in education, ensuring that students feel seen, valued, and empowered to take on these challenges. Academic barriers are becoming increasingly insurmountable, but I remain committed to teaching this course for free in my city of Fairborn, Ohio, a former sundown town, and I want to teach these courses virtually and in person, organizing teach-ins and lunch and learns, as well as community workshops. I want to bring this education to my community, where we, in collaboration with other local grassroots organizations that I have mentioned, have been able to already host events like our upcoming 5th annual Community Pride, Juneteenth celebrations, trans homecoming, free testing, workshops, and distributions. Educators have a responsibility to teach not only within the walls of universities, but also in their cities, their communities, and in their neighborhoods, especially in areas where there are fewer resources or access to education and care. Teaching financially privileged students in a university is one thing, and stepping beyond that to embrace community and social justice as a teacher is another. I encourage others to do the same with their curriculum, or this curriculum, as an institution-based academia is not inherently liberatory, and true liberation happens outside of its walls, in spaces where we actively engage and uplift our communities. In summary, this curriculum is not only inclusive, but a call to action, a call to teach outside the classroom and engage with the communities that we teach about. And in the great words of Brother Fred Hampton, theory is cool, but theory with no practice ain't shit. So this is a call to use our research skills to advocate for local needs and to, more importantly, organize collectively for a more just and equitable society. The 15-week lesson plans are available for free upon request, and I encourage you to adapt them to your needs of your learning community. Survey responses from African American history teachers are still coming in, and if you would like to take the survey, I would love to have your input and feedback, as the lesson plans are subject to be adjusted or changed based on the feedback and insights from educators. If you would like to take that survey, my email is tassie.2@wright.edu. And before we go, I'd like to thank Dr. Coretta Scott, Dr. Jessica Barnett, Dr. Tracy Snipe, Dr. Sharon Jones, Dr. Awad Halabi, Rob Content, and the summit organizers for making this space possible. Let us leave here today committing to teaching, organizing, and building the world we want to see, because another world is not only possible, but inevitable. Thank you for your attention and your commitment to this vital work. I look forward to continuing this conversation throughout the summit. In solidarity, another world is possible.